There are comics which are not well known but are quite excellent. There are comics which are extremely popular but are extremely terrible. This one isn't either of those things. I should warn you from the outset that this video will probably be me just praising 52. I make no apologies. After the events of Infinite Crisis, the DC Universe jumped ahead 1 year later. In order to explain some of the changes that happened within said jump, a weekly series was conceived. It would be released for a year and issue every week. And the smarter kids in the class have probably guessed correctly that there are indeed 52 weeks in a year. Congratulations, you can feel smart on the internet for a day. Well, there really isn't an overarching plot. The whole theme of 52 was the exploration of the DCU in the absence of its greatest heroes. You know who I'm talking about. There are several separate stories which end up intertwining or setting up series that were running at the time. Some of the major stories were Booster Gold,
Booster Gold, protecting his past to ensure your future.
having helped end the threat of Brother Eye in Infinite Crisis, is trying to use his newfound good publicity to try to become the next greatest hero. However, some very public blunders, we are talking about Booster Gold here, caused the public opinion to shift away from him. Definitely not helped by a new hero called Supernova making his debut. After the events of Gotham Central, Renee Montoya seems determined to drink herself to death and has isolated everyone around her. Help seems to come in the form of the world's greatest detective. No, not that one. Black Adam, after pulling a Tommy Wiseau,
Everybody betrayed me. I fed up with this world.
decides to form a coalition of international superpowers. Until he finds love. If you watched the first season of Daredevil, you know where this is going. After the events of Identity Crisis, which is a completely separate event than Infinite Crisis, at some point I think DC just stopped being creative and just started adding crisis at the end of everything. Well, thankfully they stopped after the final crisis, right? I'm gonna stop. Ralph Dibny is suicidally depressed. I guess that makes 2 on a downward spiral stories. 3 if I consider the booster parts. But it would seem old detectives never retire, especially when it's a case close to the heart. Dr. Will Magnus, creator of the Metal Men. Wow, Magnus, Metal Men. Is on antidepressants. Oh, come on! After his last mental breakdown led to him creating the Plutonium Man. But it would appear that someone is kidnapping mad scientists and the good doctor is on the list. John Henry and his niece Natasha just can't agree on how she should approach her superhero career. So she decides to get superpowers from this new everyman project that wants to give superpowers to everyone who wants them. I'm sure it'll be fine. After all, the project is being funded by... And finally, a lot of heroes were stuck in space after the events of Infinite Crisis. Most of them make it back, except for the trio of Starfire, Adam Strange, and everyone's favorite superhero, Animal Man. Will they make it home? Writers. 4 of them to be exact. Greg Rucka, Mark Waid, Grant Morrison, and Jeff Johns. And to keep the art style consistent, there was one breakdown artist, Keith Giffen, not to mention an ensemble cast's worth of letterers, pencilers, inkers, and colorists. Hey, you need talent to make a good series, and the creative team had a bit more freedom than expected thanks to using mostly C-list characters, so they were able to take some risks that they just couldn't do so normally. Oh, certainly, but not the only one. A consistent art style, subplots that actually impacted the characters involved as well as the universe as a whole, and also providing satisfactory conclusions to some not so well liked plots from the last few years. All of this would be great. But this series managed to avoid one of the greatest trappings that a series with such big ambitions tends to have. It was able to maintain its weekly schedule. Yes, every single issue of 52 appeared on the day that it was supposed to come out. That might not seem that impressive, but consider that there were multiple writers on this who each had their own projects. Grant Morrison was handling Batman. I really don't remember what Mark Waid was doing, but it wasn't very happy for him because he quit writing for DC after a while. Greg Rucka was doing Checkmate, and Jeff Johns was just writing like 3 or 4 series at the same time. Whatever my issues with Jeff Johns, I cannot deny that he is an excellent writer and a hard worker. Well, keeping all this in mind, the fact that these guys were able to collaborate, write, and sometimes rewrite, and produce an amazing anthology comprised of multiple stories, that's pretty damn awesome. So, hell yeah, this one lives up to the hype. If you ever read a single superhero comic in your life, make it this one.